So this is Colour Pop, a simple game. The idea is that coloured balls are going to float up from the bottom of the screen, and when they hit the top of the screen they get moved back down to the bottom. They change colour, speed and radius, and the idea is you've got to pop whatever colour is shown here. So let's have a quick go at this now. So if I pop that one, I get a point. If I pop the wrong colour, I lose a point. So I scored -1 that time, not a particularly impressive score, but there we go. So we've got 3 screens. When I press start again, it takes me back to the main menu. There we go.
Okay, so let's have a quick tour of the app we've got so far. We've uploaded the template, Colour Pop template, and here we've got the main menu screen. We've got a play button, which when we click it will already take us to the game screen. That screen's already been coded for us. This is where most of the coding is going to happen. We've got a canvas, and there's something going slightly wrong with that canvas at the moment. We've got a timer, a target colour, and we've got a score. Now the canvas, despite being on fill parent, occasionally goes a bit weird, and so we need to put in the fixed size. 300 seems to be about right. And then we can see that we've got the 5 balls for the game on the canvas itself. Each one's been named ball 1 to 5, and each one's a different colour. The first thing we're going to work on is getting the ball to move, collide with the top, and reset. So let's think about how we're going to do that. So let's think about what our app's going to do. Firstly, we've got the canvas on which the app is happening, and we've got a ball which we want to do something when it hits the top. So we're going to write an event when ball reaches top edge. What's going to happen is when the ball reaches the top edge, 2 things are going to occur. The first is we're going to change the ball's Y coordinate, that's its vertical coordinate, to the height of the canvas. That should move the ball back down to the bottom of the screen. We're also going to set the ball X to a random number between 0 and the canvas width. That will mean that when the ball gets pulled down to the bottom, it won't appear in the same X position. The ball will then continue up, and this will keep happening. So let's go and code that. So here we are back in our code, and we're going to go to the blocks view so we can see the code for this screen. Now in here we've got a few things that have been done for us already. We've got a great big block here which is basically controlling the timer element. Now this is disabled for a good reason. We're going to leave it disabled for now and enable it later when our game's working. Here we've got the event we just spoke about, when ball 1 edge reached. Now there's something slightly missing from there. What we haven't got is a check of which edge we've hit. So we're going to use an if statement. So we're going to go and ask if the edge that we have reached is the top edge. So we're going to get the edge symbol from here. We're going to go and get a logic block, and we're going to ask if the edge is equal to, and we're going to put a number in there, because the edges of our screen are represented by numbers, 1 being the top edge. So we're going to say if the edge that we have hit is the top, we're going to do 2 things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to ball 1, we're going to get its Y coordinate, which is down here, and we're going to set that Y coordinate to whatever the canvas height is. Now that will move the ball to the bottom of the screen. We're then going to use this block which has been pre-written for us, which is going to set the ball's X position to a random number between 0 and not quite the far edge, because that won't quite work, but the far edge minus the width of the ball. Don't worry too much about that, this will work. Now what we can do is we can write the same bit of code, but instead of ball 1 we can write it for ball 2. So let's think about the next step in our app. Currently the ball animates, but it's not clickable. So the next thing we're going to think about is how to make the ball clickable, gain points, lose points, and so on. So the event we're going to use for this is when ball touched. And we want a few things to happen. The first thing we want to happen is that we want to check if the ball matches the target colour. If it does match the target colour, we're going to increase their score by 1. If it doesn't match their target colour, we're going to decrease their score by 1. whatever changes we've made to the score, we're going to update the score display, and finally we then need to use the same two lines that we had before. We're going to reset the ball Y and X coordinates. Let's go and code this now. Okay, so before we start coding this next section, it's worth noting that the code we're going to write today is going to get very complicated and fill our page up. So I've used this feature. If we right click on a block of code, we can collapse the block and it just makes it a little bit smaller. If you want to tidy up, you can also arrange blocks horizontally and it just puts things up near the top where you can find them. If you want to edit the code again, you can expand and collapse. So, ball clicking. What we're going to do is we're going to go to ball 1 and we're going to go up to the top here and find the events that ball 1 has. Now we have 3 different touch events and we're going to want the touched event. The first thing we're going to do is we need to ask a question about what's happening. So we're going to go and ask a question, which we'll find in control. We're going to get an if block. Now if you remember back to our pseudocode that we just wrote, we've got an if and an else. This block doesn't have that. So we're going to click in this blue square here and we're going to add an else condition in. So now we've got if, do something else. So the question we wanted to ask was, does the colour of the ball match the target colour? So we're going to grab ourselves an equal symbol from logic. We're going to compare something about ball 1 and the target colour. So we're going to find the background colour of target colour and we're going to compare it with ball 1 and we're going to look for a colour property and it is paint colour just here. Snap that in. So does the background colour equal the paint colour? If it does, we're going to add a point, and if it doesn't, we're going to lose a point. To add a point, we are going to go and find out what the current score is, global score. We're going to use a math block to add that on, so we're going to say set global score, we're going to get global score, sorry, and we're going to add on to that the value 1, so we're going to click that into there and pop 1 in, and the result of that we are going to store back in the global score variable. There we go. I'll leave you to figure out how to do taking away, which is very similar. The next thing we want to do is then update the display, because this at the moment is just going to count in the app's head, as it were. It's going to count and not report that. So we're going to set our score, which is, if we just go to our game screen, is this little space here. We're going to set our score text to whatever the value of global score is. Whoops, that should be below the if here. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add in the 2 lines of code to make the ball reset, which I can find up in the ball 1 edge reach bit of code. So now this bit of code should be working. When ball 1 touched, check the target colour. If it's the right ball, add a point. If it's the wrong ball, we still need to take a point away here. Update the score, move the ball to the bottom, choose a random X coordinate. This currently works for ball 1, we'll then need to duplicate it for the other 4 balls in the game, and then test it.